Alright, the 1988 Robocop arcade game. I just beat it. This is like maybe the second or third time I beat it, but this is back when video games had good cutscenes and ending screens that were worth getting to by beating the game.
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law. Robocop.
There's me, the top 5 scores. KMN. Christian Michael Noggle. Of course, I put in Dad in the number 3 spot. Finished the game with $270,000 exactly, or 270,000 points exactly. And yeah, I remember this game back in the late 1980s, the early 1990s. Playing it at the Walmart store, just your regular Division I style store, not your Super Center or anything. We may have got that game as soon as it came out in '88, but I remember there, I think in '89 and '90, that arcade vendor there was really cool because they would just cycle in the good games every few months, even if they had to have the same ones a few times. In 1992, they had the X-Men arcade game. They had Street Fighter there, the very first one from 1987. They had that there a few times. They had Robocop. So usually their games were late 1980s or early 1990s. Mostly late 1980s. They had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game from 1989 there, at least a few times. They had Road Blasters there. Operation Wolf. There's a few good games. I mean, and sometimes like the same game would be there 3 times, like during the whole rotation. They had Afterburner there. Then in like 1994, they closed down that store. They started up the Super Center there. The Walmart Super Center in its current location on Edsel Lane in Corydon. Because it was located kind of the in between Highway 135 and Highway 337 in Corydon, where Tractor Supply is now. Actually, half of the Tractor Supply building in Corydon, or the Tractor Supply building in Corydon, Indiana, is in what's half of the remaining Walmart building. They tore the other half down a few years back. But, yeah, I wish Tractor Supply would have occupied the entire, like, Walmart building, but that didn't happen. Anyway, there were some cool games back then, and I really liked it. If you go to Tractor Supply in Corydon, Indiana today, you can still see, if you look on the ground, you can see the concrete blocks that are embedded in the concrete that were the perimeter of the original Walmart building. It was just really awesome back then. You just had to be there. But in 1994, when they opened up the Walmart Supercenter, they put in Mortal Kombat 2. That was one of the arcade games they had there that was pretty good. And they didn't have as many of the good ones in 1994. They didn't put in the 1992 Bucky O'Hare arcade game that I know of, or they didn't bring back the 1992 X-Men arcade game that I know of. They didn't bring in the 1994 Battletoads arcade game, not that I've seen, even though it was brand new then. I think that I remember the 1993 Mortal Kombat 2 arcade game was the only good one that they brought in there. And then in the late 90s, they had Hydro Thunder, which is an okay game, but like every place has that. It's like the new Pac-Man. It's like how Pac-Man was common and everybody had it. Now back in 1999, in the old Druthers restaurant building, which still stands to this day. It's just another business. But back in 1999, a friend of mine was a shift manager at that same location where Druthers had been back in the early 1980s. And but it was Pizza King occupying that building, and they had a good arcade vendor in there. And I wonder if it's the same one that operated the Walmart store nearly 10 years earlier, because it's the same pattern. It was the same games on the same or a very similar rotational pattern. Because they'd have Operation Wolf come in there. They would have Street Fighter, the original 1987 Street Fighter game. Of course, it was 12 years old, and they had it in that place. I like that building. Just something about it. There's a lot of positive memories. And of course, something you can make fun of me for. Back in 1984, maybe 1985, I remember taking it was a blue-colored Monopoly money of a $5 bill, and I tried to get biscuits and gravy with it at the restaurant. Yeah, memories. Was that like 33 years ago, maybe 32 years ago that I did that? Because now it's 2017. Anyway, fun times.